Manhwa is a game changer. I mean, for the longest time, the only thing that weebs consume are anime, manga, and light novels, and the introduction of manhwa brought a really big change in the weeb culture. Who would have thought that coloring your drawings will do the trick, right? But joking aside, I really love manhwas, particularly pornwa. And if you think I'm joking, then you are underestimating my degeneracy here. Because unlike y'all, I am proud to say that I found manhwas only because I'm horny as fuck. And pornwas are top tier material. We don't settle for garbage here, folks. And stop lying to yourself because most of y'all also found manhwas because of pornwa, and you can change that fact. But of course, we came for the good shit and stayed for the variety of good shits that manhwa has to offer, and one of those are Power-Fantasy Manhwas. These range from your isekai manhwas like the beginning of the end and a returner's magic should be special to your manhwas with game-like features like solo leveling and legendary moonlight sculptor, or just anything that gets you hype as fuck and with big and bombastic action scenes and massive fictional worlds. With how many Power Fantasy manhwas you can choose from, you can easily fall on the rabbit hole and fall deep to the point of no return. If you read one, that's the end of your productivity. Forget about time management because you will never accomplish any plans you have and will end up lying in bed all day reading one manhwa after another. But why is it? Why do we read stories with the same core ideas over and over again? Because that's what Power Fantasy manhwas are, right? There are stories with the same core ideas over and over again with only slight variations in each of them. If it's not a guy who gets isekai into a world with magic, then it's just a weak guy progressively getting stronger in an explosive way and gaining all sorts of power up that he gets. And I think I know the answer to this question. We read them because it's fun. As simple as that. We don't need to have a grand reason for reading these Power Fantasy manhwas because we're only here to have fun. The world is in a terrible place right now and we need something to distract us even for just a moment, and Power Fantasy manhwas are a great way to accomplish that. Being introduced to a new world with its own laws and common sense is always fun. I guess the right term for this is escapism. And reading stories like these are always an extraordinary experience. But not all Power Fantasy manhwas are great. As much as I love the genre, it's not always candies and rainbows or secret quests and satisfying revenge. There are some stories that are just straight up terrible. If you ask me what I think are the top Power Fantasy manhwas, then I can only think of 5 stories that really stands out. There's Solo Leveling, Tower of God, A Returner's Magic Should Be Special, The Beginning of the End, and God of High School. Now, these are only my personal opinions, so you don't need to be triggered. But those 5 are the only titles that quickly came to my mind, and I think that's saying something because that means these 5 did something right for them to be remembered quickly. So what did they do right for them to be remembered? Well, first off, effort. You can actually feel this when you're at the middle of reading a story. You'll know the author spent a lot of time on research and carefully laying down the groundwork just by the feel of the story. If it keeps you craving for more or if it keeps you guessing what will happen next, then that's a good sign. Another thing is the art. The best example of this is Solo Leveling's art style. Solo Leveling boasts the most gorgeous art style in all of manhwa, and that is no exaggeration at all. It's always on point, which in turn make all the fight scenes look fluid as fuck. Now, Solo Leveling is an exception really. By that I mean it's on a completely different level even from the start of the series until now. Some manhwas like Tower of God though didn't start off with a great art style. Actually, I can straight up say that it's shit. It's garbage compared to most manhwas out there. But it gradually got better and it's now on par with Solo Leveling in terms of its art. Another aspect that makes these particular stories unforgettable is their world, and Tower of God is I think the best example in this category so far. With so many floors the tower has, with each floor having its own rules and design, habitats and wildlife, it's incomparable compared to others. But the scariest part of this is that they haven't reached the peak of the tower yet in the story, so the currently massive world has the potential to expand even more. Although other manhwas doesn't have a massive world like Tower of God, they compensate this in the form of different dungeons, each with their own ecosystem and living beings inhabiting these dungeons. Another aspect in this list is the magic system. A magic system can make or break a story. A good magic system, in my opinion, can carry a story on its own. But with these Power Fantasy manhwas, like I said earlier, the core ideas are always the same. Whether it be key-based or magic-based magic system, the basic concept is always the same. They follow the same format while adding slight variations so it doesn't feel repetitive. With God of High School's Chariot, which enables the user to borrow a power to a god which feeds on the user's life energy, a key-based magic system, or with the beginning of the end's various magic systems starting from the 4 basic elements with fire, water, rock, and wind as the main system, which can be upgraded to deviances such as lightning magic with fire, ice magic with water, sound magic with wind, and gravity magic to earth. Added to that, there's a separate system called Beast Tamer, which can be achieved by signing a contract to a specific beast or just by consuming a beast will from a beast core. But of course, all of these are only secondary aspects. I would argue that it should already be a given to have these aspects if you want to make a good power fantasy manhwa. But the most important part out of all of this is obviously the main character. A badass, cool-looking main character with the most overpowered abilities will do the trick really. Jinwoo, a deadly assassin and also a fucking shadow monarch with thousands of undead soldiers at his disposal. 25th Bam with a thorn, blue and red Trisa, 8,000 soul inside of him, and the ability to copy any abilities that he saw. Basically, this meme. Desir Arman with the ability to cancel any spell with his magic analysis. Jin Morris Renewal Taekwondo and Monkey King mode, and lastly, Arthur Lewin, a quadra-elemental augmenter with 2 deviances, ice and lightning, while also being a beast tamer. They are all OP as characters that it's hard to forget them at all. And with this, I want to make my last point. I mean, we can talk about Power Fantasy Manhwas if we're not gonna bring up the fights. And for me, the fights are always the highlights when it comes to Power Fantasy Manhwas. They are always the hypest, most exciting part of the story arc, and they always deliver every time. Some people say that giving the main character so much power-ups can ruin the story, but when it comes to this kind of stories, it's bullshit. Having a main character with so much abilities in his arsenal is the beauty of Power Fantasy stories. It helps the author to experiment and combine abilities that blows your mind. And I'm always up for things that makes me question my sanity. Do you know the art of snapping? It's when the main character snaps and gets serious once and for all, which always sends a chill down my spine. It's when their eyes disappear and complete darkness envelopes the screen and shit goes down. I live for those moments, man. Or just a simple "Arise" from Jinwoo will do the trick too. Arise is so fucking iconic, I wet my pants every time Jinwoo converts a strong monster into his underling. And so, the bottom line is, I love Power Fantasy Manhwas. It's always an experience when I read one and disappointed at the same time when you reach the latest chapters. But maybe that's another advantage of manhwas, that it's so enjoyable and easy to read that you don't realize that you reached the latest chapter until you swipe up and you've already reached the bottom. So you feel unsatisfied, so you search another manhwa just like that and repeat the process over and over again. The rabbit hole is bottomless and I'm willing to jump in anytime if I will be rewarded with these Power Fantasy manhwas that I really enjoy. I hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you want to be notified on future videos, and that's it for me for now. I'm the villain in glasses, and stay degenerate. Bye!